From Beyond Marketing, it's the 20-Minute Call, a podcast about the dreamers, boundary pushers, rebels, and champions of the skydiving industry. Each episode is a narrative journey highlighted by the highs, lows, and luck that the skydiving industry delivers, as told by the most influential people within the sport. If you've ever dreamed of becoming a skydiver, perhaps opening a drop zone, or becoming the next world champion, check out the 20-Minute Call hosted by me, James LeBarry. If you've not heard of Dan Schiermeyer, it's very possible that you own his product, the Sheer Clamp, from Sheer Concepts. Dan is a longtime member of the skydiving community, having worked as a tandem instructor, camera flyer, and been involved in some amazing projects like the recent Operation VK with Performance Designs. Dan is an inventor, a former engineer with Joe Gibbs Racing, a serial entrepreneur, and an incredible skydiver. Please welcome Dan Schiermeyer.
Thanks for having me, James.
Dan, it's a pleasure having you, man. I'm so excited to be able to speak with you. For those that are listening, usually we record inside a soundproof booth, and we are here live in person. So
this is much better in person.
Always better for sure. So I'm real curious about your background, Dan. There's so much to talk about. Tell me about your background. Where are you from, and maybe a little bit more about your childhood?
So I grew up in Vermont. My parents were born and raised in Germany, so they moved here in 1984, had me and my brother, so we grew up in Vermont, and they planned to come here for a few years and ended up staying. So grew up in Vermont, was tons of fun, ended up going to school in Rochester, New York. After I graduated, I ended up moving all around, so I lived in New England for quite a while. I lived in Arkansas, Connecticut, Maine, and Georgia. Ended up in Maine for a few years, hated corporate America, and then kind of took a quarter-life crisis, and that's kind of how I ended up down in North Carolina.
Okay, so we're covering a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
I do, one brother.
Okay. Younger, older?
He's older, and he lives in Huntersville. So
why were you moving around so much?
So when I graduated college, I got a manufacturing engineering rotation program, so I worked in a different business unit every 6 months. So instead of just working in one building in different departments, I actually worked at different business units all across. So started in Connecticut. It was for Pratt & Whitney, big aerospace company. And then they moved me to Arkansas, which was a small business unit. Then back to Connecticut, then to Maine, and then to Georgia. So over a 2-year span, I lived in 4 different states. Okay,
so what I'm trying to wrestle with here is you're only 33, 34.
35, just turned 35.
Just turned 35. So this is, you're working for companies like blue chip companies, Pratt & Whitney, right out of college. So how do you get access to that? Obviously you're a pretty good student.
Tie it back, yeah. So I went to school for manufacturing engineering, which kind of ties in why I like to make stuff. Went to school for manufacturing engineering. Part of why I chose RIT was they had a co-op program. So instead of graduating college with just a degree, you had to do co-ops. So you had to go out and work for a company. One of the first companies I worked for was, what was the name? Hamilton Sunstrand. And they were part of the big corporate umbrella of United Technologies, which Pratt & Whitney is under. When I worked there, I found out about these rotation programs out of college because when I graduated, I was like, I still don't know what I want to do with my life. It's like a rotation program sounds perfect. I get to move around, see different parts of the business, and see what I want to do. So I started figuring out how to apply while I was still on that co-op and ended up landing a job before I even graduated.
I still feel like I'm missing something here in terms of, were you like a brilliant student?
Nope.
You were not?
No, not crazy brilliant, but I guess I was a good worker. So when I did co-ops, I had good reputation, got everything done that I needed to. I wasn't a bad student. I think I still finished with honors, but...
A way better student than I was. I'm wanting to get a sense, was there any early indicator that you would be an inventor of things and that engineering was what you wanted to do?
So I guess I should have started back. In high school, we had a career development center. So in my high school, in your junior and senior year, we had a manufacturing shop. We had an auto repair convenience store, engineering, forestry, all these different things that kids could go do to figure out what they wanted to do. I took the manufacturing, which was learning how to run CNC machines, things like that. And that's what got me onto the manufacturing. And through that, that's how I found the school I went to. Went and did a tour there and just fell in love with it.
I feel like you're the combination of hands-on
Yep.
and pretty smart. Combination of the two. We'll give it to you. I'll tell you what I admire about you, and really I'm wanting to cover our time together in 3 sections. I want to talk about your personal self, and then, of course, professionally, and then also skydiving. One thing I'm so curious about you, Dan, is I feel like you're living intention.
For sure.
Many of us are wired to exit college, and then we're in the grind 9 to 5. But you really are thinking differently. Can you share with us the conscious thought of the type of life you're trying to create for yourself?
Yeah. I've put a lot of thought in this in the last few years, for sure, just how to end up where I am now. So growing up, my dad was a private pilot, so he flew rich people all the time, and I got to tag along. And I didn't realize this until recently, but I think that rubbed off on when I got out of college and worked for a big corporate company. I started to feel like just a number. Like, it doesn't matter what you do. If the CEOs have to do a layoff or whatever, you could get cut. I was like, this sucks. And I could also see in corporate, it's so structured. I could see the people that had been there for 20 years. I knew where I was going to be in 20 years. And I was like, it's not where I want to be. And another thing that changed my mind, I started skydiving when I was in college. So I already had like this passion and thing I wanted to go do. And work was starting to cut into that. And I was seeing these people that had worked for 20, 30 years, and they were just miserable. They said they were going to go travel when they retired. I saw people not make it to retirement. They passed away before they even retired. And I was like, this is not the life I want. After I had moved around and I was there for 5 years, I quit with no plan. I had money saved and everything. But I was like, I need to find something that's a better work-life balance. And that's actually when I started Sheer Concepts, because I had the time. I was a full-time skydive instructor at Jumptown in Orange, Massachusetts. Kind of had the winter off, really worked on Sheer Concepts, launched it. Actually, recently I launched it in 2015, which is crazy. It's almost been 10 years. And then my brother lived in North Carolina. It's a funny story. I actually came down for a Carolina Fest to visit my brother, went on a bike ride, and met the person that hired me at Joe Gibbs Racing. That's how I ended up down here. There's a whole nother story since I've been down in North Carolina, but yeah, been trying to create a life where I can kind of do what I want, but still be financially free and financially set in my future.
I'm curious, when you're talking about your early 20s and having the self-awareness to go, I don't want that life, right? When I was in my early 20s, I didn't have the ability to even think that way. I mean, I had the ability, but I didn't. I was chasing a paycheck.
Yeah.
So what is it about you that allowed you to instead of sort of be so involved in the chasing, that you're looking at a bigger picture at that age? I may have just started doing that more recently, not in my early 20s.
I don't know what started it. I think, like I said, I kind of relate it back to my dad being a private pilot and getting to see all these people with like crazy wealth. Not that I care to ever be that big, but they got to do whatever they wanted. They traveled all the time, and I could see being in corporate, like, you were just working. And I was like, nobody has like a goal, a passion. Like, their goal is to retire at 65, but by the time they get there, they're not healthy. They haven't done half the things they ever want to do. They go to Mexico once a year for a vacation or something. And I was like, just not the life I want. But when I quit, I had a worst case scenario. It was like, the worst case scenario is I just have to get a job again, or go back to a big corporate company to make the same money. It's like, I have to try something or I'm going to regret it until whenever. So I tried it and everything seemed to work out so far.
Fascinating. I want to say that you and I were introduced by Mel Curtis, maybe sometime a year or two after you started Sheer Concepts. Yeah. And she was like, you two got to meet.
I launched it in her office in Vermont. I just looked back. I was actually sitting in her office going through some of the final stuff, and I hit launch and go live when I was sitting in her office.
So let's talk about Sheer Concepts then.
Yeah.
For those listening that are not familiar with what that is, what is the sheer clamp?
When GoPros came into the sport, for anybody that's used them, the thumb screw is a royal pain in the butt to tighten all the way down. And when you're jumping out of a plane, the GoPro would still move. You had to use a screwdriver. But if you used a screwdriver to tighten it, you couldn't loosen it then, so it was kind of stuck. I ride bicycles too, and I was adjusting the seat on my bike, and it had the cam clamp on it. And I literally took it off my bike, went up to my GoPro, put it on, and I was like, holy shit, this works. It was different direction, but so that was probably early 2014, maybe 2013. And then my background's manufacturing. I like to tinker and make stuff. I made a prototype, and I actually went back and looked at pictures. In 2014, I had them at Carolina Fest. And it was just like a straight metal rod. And that people started asking me about it. They're like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's this lever I can just adjust and make just the angle of my GoPro. People were like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, oh, people actually like this. I just made it for myself. And then I had a roommate in college, and he was an entrepreneur. He had started a few companies. I got with him, and I was like, hey, if I wanted to make this legit and sell it online, like, how do I do it? And he just helped me walk through the process, like create an LLC, get an EIN number, create a website, do all that. And that was the start of it. And the whole goal for me was to learn. I didn't really care if it sold a bunch of them or not. I just wanted to learn the business process. And it's still going. I still sell them. And all the stuff that I've learned from doing it, plus the cool people that I've used them, the people that I've met, it's been an awesome experience.
I've seen the shear clamp on, countless.
Yeah.
Countless. How many have you sold, would you guess?
Probably between 4,000 and 5,000. So
pretty good.
It's not bad.
I mean, I don't feel like you're out there in Parachutist Magazine marketing. It's pretty organic, grassroots.
I used to, when I first started, I actually had some of the bigger skydive stores really pushed it. So one of them had it in the Parachutist, which helped sales. It did really well for a while. I've met some other inventors that were in the GoPro accessory market, and they were like, you were 2 years too late.
Wow.
Just the accessory market completely died off. Like I said, the experience has been great. I still, when I see people at a drop zone that I don't know, I'm like, how do you like that thing? They're like, oh, it's either good, some people don't like it, or they want to change something. I'm like, cool, it's my product. And they're like, oh, no way, this is awesome. That's the cool part about it.
You wanted to learn through that process. What was the biggest thing you learned?
Man, like the basics is like, some people want to launch a business, they want to do something. They're like, oh, I need a logo, I need to create a business, or like a business plan and all this. Like, creating an LLC paperwork takes 10 minutes. You send a check in, you get it back. Then you go to the bank and you open it. Like, that stuff's easy, but it takes people months to take those steps. When I got further in my entrepreneur and had to create businesses to buy businesses, that paperwork was easy. I didn't even have to think about it. It took me, like I said, 10 minutes to fill the paperwork out and send it in. So it just came into play later in life. And then figuring out how to get things made, source them, what's the pain points, how to use shipping technology, how to save money on shipping and doing it at home versus taking it to the post office or whatever. There's so many just like little tweaks. How to make a website. It's not my background, but so many little unique tips.
So is it pretty an automated sort of business for you right now? I mean, I assume you're not doing the manufacturing anymore.
No, so I have the parts made. Actually, some of them are made in North Carolina. Some of them are sourced from overseas. I still have to do part of the assembly process. So to keep it worth making, I have to do some of the assembly, which I actually pay my niece. She's 7, so she makes money off of it. It's a good little job. But yeah, to keep the cost down and make it worth it for me, I have to do more of the assembly manually, but it's not that bad.
Fascinating. You know, a lot of people are looking for passive income. I mean, is this sort of passive income? You wake up in the morning and there's 4 or 5 orders or something like that?
Sometimes, yeah.
Man, that's got to be so rewarding.
When a store orders, they'll order like 40 at a time. It might take me an hour to put some of them together, ship it out, and makes money.
If you're a DZO or DZM listening to this podcast and you're not using Burble, I've got a question. Why not? If the reason is price, what's the cost of your time? Other booking and manifest softwares are a one-size-fits-all. Burble was built from the ground up by a DZO for DZOs to maximize efficiency. Now, isn't that nice? There's no software that compares. Choose Burble. I remember that you went from sort of here you can get the shear clamp, but now you can get it, I don't know if you're still doing this, but in like all these different colors and...
Yeah, so in the beginning it was a bunch of colors, and then I did a few like short runs of a special color like purple or something, purple and pink. I only sell 3 colors now. It's blue, red, and black because they're the most popular, and it's just easy. If I go to too many colors, then you end up with too much inventory and it takes too long to sell. Blue, red, and black always sell. So, and they stay pretty even. I kind of know the order quantities. I always order more black because that's the most popular, and then kind of range between the red and the blue. And then I usually kind of run out all at the same time, and then I'll order another batch.
So do you have a garage full of clamps?
No. They're like 4. I usually order like 400 or 500 at a time, and surprisingly, they don't take up that much room. Just a couple bags full.
And I know you said you get the parts here, so these are not being manufactured in China.
There's a few components I get from China, but the main clamp, like the colored piece with the logo, that's all made here.
I got a lot more questions, and I think it might be that, being that this is a skydiving podcast, we should probably move on. Maybe for the entrepreneurial podcast, we can dig into the details, because all of that is so fascinating to me. So that's amazing. So let's talk a little bit more about your professional career. Here in the Carolinas, where we're sitting right now, this is home of NASCAR. Mm-hmm. And when you say you work for Joe Gibbs Racing around here, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
And you're not that the pit crew is bad, but you are making things.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a little bit about what it's like to work on a NASCAR team?
Yeah, it's kind of like a professional sports team, because really what NASCAR is driving billboards. So they're just big sponsorship on TV. But yeah, it's a whole different world. A lot of times you get stressed at work and you have to kind of go back and be like, we're building race cars. Like, no need to be stressed. But it was super cool. We had the newest technology of everything. We had our own machine shop, which is kind of the areas that I worked in. Just having the newest stuff, getting to meet super cool people. Like, we used to bike ride at work. A bunch of NASCAR employees as well as drivers would ride, so I got to ride with a lot of really cool people. The experience was wild. It was just, NASCAR is a busy sport. They race 36 weekends a year, so the off season's really from November to the end of January, which is actually the busy time for when you're making stuff for the next season. So it's just a demanding career. Definitely a lot of opportunity there, but in this trying to live intentionally, anything that you do in a manufacturing, you're usually stuck working in a building. So I like to be outside, see new things. So just after a certain while and from a skydiving event, kind of trying to change my course of path and kind of how I've ended up where I'm at, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Have you ever worked in a job that you loved?
What I do now.
What you do now?
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you do now.
So what I do now, I own some real estate, so I own a few rentals. I have a self-service car wash and a storage facility, and I work for a startup company as well that's in the storage industry.
So you're working for Joe Gibbs.
Yep.
You are an engineer. I imagine that paycheck's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then you decide to leave so that you could start your own thing, which is own a car wash, a storage facility.
I was doing it all at the same time, which I was running out of time at that time. I started acquiring rental properties when I first moved down here because I got into personal finance out of college, which personal finance and skydiving don't really line up. So trying to be smart with my money. When I moved down here, I ended up buying a house because it was cheaper to get a mortgage than it was to rent. And then ended up buying a few more over the years. And then in 2020, so during COVID, we were back to work. I ended up buying a car wash with my brother and then bought a storage facility 7 months later. So I was running two businesses and working full time, which at my real job, we were breaking our machine shop off to be its own company. So it was basically starting three companies at once and just worked too much. It was all for a purpose, though. I was trying to get to a point that I made enough money outside of my real job that I could leave and still be financially free. And I got to that point in June of 2020. Or 2022, sorry.
You were quoted on a podcast that you said, look, if we could sell these assets, I would be making more than what I make in 6 years at my job.
Yeah.
At Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yeah. A year and a half after owning my businesses, if I sold them, I would have made more than I made at my job in 6 years. So that was a pivotal moment for me. I was like, holy crap, I need to go all in on this and focus on this because I think I can make it work. And like I said before, my worst case scenario there was I just had to go get another job.
You could do tandems.
Yeah, if I needed to.
I'd like for you to give some advice. There's a lot of skydivers out there. And I want to say, I know of several skydivers that are almost lifers in the sport or want to be, right? It's skydiving all the time. And where the risk really starts happening is as you start getting older, if you're not putting money away and thinking about retirement and et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Now, in your story, I never heard you say I was a finance guy. I heard you say you were an engineer.
Yep.
So you learned some skills. If someone were to come to you, say, in our community and say, look, I want to start my own thing, what should I read? What should I listen to? What advice would you give?
Yeah, I definitely have a list of books. Probably have a conversation with them first, because some people have the right mindset to go jump in. Some people don't have the right mindset. So there's certain things you got to listen to get your mind right to make sure you're going to be successful for something if you want to go start it.
So let me pause you there. You say mindset. What is the right mindset?
Oof, hard to put into words. Just having a positive mindset, having a vision on what you want to do, like where you want to be, like actually seeing where you want to be in 5 years. It's pretty easy. If you want to be here, you want to make this much money, it's pretty easy to break out the steps and go all the way back. Then you can look at it and be like, well, that's a lot more work than I want to do. Maybe I only want to be here, then break down the steps. But if you don't have the right mindset, you're negative about everything. Like maybe you need to think a little bit more about how you show up in your life every day before you try to make a jump and go do something, to know if you even want to do that or if it just sounds cool because somebody else is doing it.
I want to key in on what you said there. You said sort of what changes you need to make in your daily life.
Yeah.
What changes did you make in your daily life to make things happen?
Planning, writing things down, actually like making goals, checking in on them, staying fit, like eating well. Those are big things because I feel like my brain works better when I'm in good shape and I take care of my body. Trying to stay on top of everything. It's hard to juggle when I've had so many things going on. So like planning was a big thing. I always carry around like a notebook so I can write everything down so I can go back and make sure I either got something done or if I forgot something, I'd have it written down somewhere I could go back and look. It's a lot of organization stuff. And I still feel like I'm a mess, but I think everybody does.
It's funny, as you're saying, I'm a late bloomer for my whole life. It's taken me longer to sort of figure things out. And something that I've adopted really in the last year is that I'm a business athlete. Mm-hmm. I am working with clients. I'm working with my immediate team. And when I think about what does an athlete do? An athlete gets rest. An athlete eats well. An athlete gets away from their sport. They can't be in it all the time, so there has to have some separation. An athlete is intentional in order to get the end result. And I view that as that's my sport. Mm-hmm. So when I hear you saying those things, it gives me validation because I'm really honing in on my daily habits so that I can show up to be my best self every day. And definitely I have more energy. I'm feeling a whole lot, better, but
for sure.
I think it's critical. For
sure. Once I quit my W-2 job with Joe Gibbs, I had kind of took a year off where I was just running my businesses and doing my thing. So I got to focus on what worked, what didn't, what I wanted my days to look like. So it definitely makes a difference. I show up with a clearer head every day. I know when I'm productive, so I can focus when I have work to do, be like, all right, getting it done in the morning just makes things, I don't want to say easier, but I can just apply my focus better.
Yeah. Something else, there's a principle that's also ringing to me in what you're saying is Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One of those habits is begin with the end result in mind. And I feel like you've been doing that.
It's funny. I read that book in 2021, and it's the next book I'm going to read. I'm rereading the newest version of it. But I think that book had some of the help to push me to being more intentional, how to quit my job, like those types of things, kind of organize what I wanted to do, where I wanted to be in 5 years.
I'm a person that didn't have a lot of self-belief. A lot of my peers would tell me, oh, you're going to be great, or things are going to be okay. But I never had the same level of confidence in myself as many of my peers did in me. And so I used to listen to a lot of motivational speaking, mm-hmm. To really kind of give me some clarity that I can do X, Y, Z. And a big one for me was Les Brown. But do you listen to any of that, or is it you're more sort of internal? You have that self-belief?
No, I've listened to a lot of motivational speeches, a lot of mindset books. I don't have anything off the top of my head, but if you listen to positive stuff, I feel like it helps your mind think positive. If you listen to negative stuff, it doesn't help. So I think just put good in, good more likely to come out. You put junk in, you get junk out.
So who inspires you? Who do you enjoy listening to or reading?
Put me on the spot. I can't think of. I listen to like Ed Milet's podcast, Lewis Howes. They have some really good mindset, motivational stuff. Tim Bilyeu. They have a lot of good speakers on. Listened to so much real estate over the years. That's kind of hit or miss. It's not really helpful on mindset stuff. Who else? I don't know. I've spent
Many hours.
many hours on podcasts. And I like podcasts because there's the 2-hour podcast, there's the 45-minute, there's the 15-minute. You can find what you want to listen to. And I used to listen to them on the way to work every day. Mm-hmm. Don't remember a single drive to work, but I remember some of the stuff I listened to.
My favorite is How I Built This with Guy Raz.
Yep.
I
That's
love
a great one as well.
Hearing an entrepreneur's story going, wow, they didn't have... They
did not have it
perfect.
together.
Yeah, they are as much of a mess as I am myself.
Yeah, listening to that stuff, you're like, okay, nobody's got it together. They're figuring it out along the way. It's the game of life. I
think for our skydiving audience that are into business, this has been enlightening. For those that are not, we're ready to talk about some skydiving probably. I do have one last question before we pivot. Why car wash? Why a storage facility?
So car wash just kind of fell. I was doing the small rental stuff and started to talk about real estate more. And I just met some people in the Lake Norman area that were full-time real estate investors and had done really well. I was talking with a buddy once and I was like, we were at a car show with a guy that had some really nice cars, and me and him were talking about investing in like 401ks. Like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I think I'm going to stop investing in my 401k and start putting into real estate. And he was like, I think I'm going to trade stocks. And the guy we were there that has the nice cars, when I said the real estate stuff, he goes, how do you think I bought all these cars? And I was like, what? And I had dinner with him, and he kind of told me his plan, what he had been doing, and I was like, holy crap. So I started talking more about real estate, learning a ton more about it, and my brother was a professional dirt bike mechanic, and a guy that had done really well had money, and he had put money in car washes in Florida. So me just talking about real estate, knowing some business stuff, my brother's like, let's check this out. And we looked at the numbers, and we're like, wow, that thing works. Like, it makes sense on paper. You can get debt that covers it, and these are all the things we know we could improve that will likely make the business better. Let's try it. And we made it happen. And then just the way some loans fell, the one bank made us have a bunch of money in reserves when we bought it. Same broker brought us the storage facility. After running the car wash for like 3 months, somebody brought the storage, and I was like, man, that's probably way easier to run. And we figured out we could buy that one as well. We did. We kind of automated it. It's way less effort. Just another business that kind of recession-proof, makes good cash flow, doesn't take a lot of time, way less stuff to break. Just kind of fell into both of them, and they're both good asset classes that are highly kind of popular now for people that are in real estate. And I just kind of got into them right before they got really popular. So luck and timing.
Fascinating. I have more questions on that, but we'll move on. If you're a fan of the 20-Minute Call, I'd like to invite you to be a member of a budding community with me on Patreon. By becoming a patron of the show, you can join me behind the scenes to discuss options for future guests and gain access to some show swag. It's pretty sweet. Details on how to become a patron can be found in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. Let's talk about skydiving.
Yep.
You made your first jump at Jumptown?
Yep, 2007. I was a senior in high school.
What was the occasion that took you there?
So, my dad was a pilot. We went flying one day. He had to go do a trip to Boston and back, so I flew with him. It was like plane maintenance stuff. So he always heard they were dropping jumpers when he would fly to Boston. And he's like, you want to jump someday? And I was like, yeah. I was like, but I don't want to do a tandem. I just want to go learn to jump by myself. And we figured out that you could do that. We saw what AFF was. But one day we stopped there driving back and was just watching people jump. Watched the guy camera flyer swooping over the building. And I was like, he's like, you want to go jump, don't you? And I was like, yep. And it wasn't a busy day. I think it was like a Friday afternoon. So I walked in the manifest, signed the waiver, got trained, and went and did my first tandem and loved it. And then I was still a senior in high school. I remember having to go to lacrosse practice the next day, and I was like, oh, man, that was fun. And I used to ride dirt bikes in high school. So after my freshman year of college, I came back, wanted to start jumping more. I was working at a restaurant on weekends, so I'd go jump in the morning, then go work at the restaurant, and then sold my dirt bike so I could get my A license, bought my first rig, and then just fell in love with it. And college kind of worked timing-wise. I was starting to do co-op, so I'd make money, so I'd budget money to go to collegiates. So I just jumped my balls off since I started. I've been on current once my first year. Got recurrent in December of 2009, and I haven't been on current since.
Wow. When I first started my agency in 2013, one of our first clients, or early clients, was Jumptown.
Oh, nice.
And Diane Pond called me and flew out there, met with the team, and I think I went out there a couple times.
Yeah, I was probably there.
Very possibly.
Because I was still working in New England, so I was there always there on the weekends if I didn't live in the area.
Yeah, I spoke with the team there, and I could tell it was a real community.
Yeah.
At Jumptown.
Yep, they still have the community, but my community of people that we all met at Jumptown have all spread across the country.
Sure.
But we're all still good friends.
Are you familiar with the history? And you must be familiar with the history of Jumptown.
Yep.
Interestingly, one of our clients is Jacques Estelle, who is actually D2.
Okay.
And there used to be an instructor rating I1. Mm-hmm. And he was one of the founders of that drop zone, or maybe the founder, way back. And they hosted, I think, the 1962 World Meet at Jumptown. Jacques is still alive today. I think he's 94 or 95 and owns an incredible piece of property called The History of Humanity in Granite in Felicity, California, on about 2,000 plus acres. It's,
nice.
It's fascinating. When I talked to him about skydiving in the early 60s,
sketch.
It's very interesting. But he brought a lot of professionalism to what was super. I was really impressed with how professional sort of it was with their branding on their aircraft and that whole thing. And it seemed like it was very organized. He and Lou Sanborn were pretty connected.
Yeah.
So
a lot of history at Jumptown. It's funny. I moved here in 2016, and Skydive Carolina bought Jumptown's otter.
That's right. I know that was a very proud moment for DZO Danny Smith at Skydive Carolina.
Yeah, everybody was stoked when the otter showed up, and I was like, I got 1,000 jumps out of this thing already.
That's wild. So you started jumping in 2006, 2007.
No, 2007 was my first jump. I got my license in 2008.
So you've been at this a while, 15, 16 odd years. Tell me a little bit about your progress. You become licensed. I know you were doing tandems at Skydive Carolina for a while. I know you've been shooting camera, but I don't know much about your career trajectory.
So I started at Jumptown, just a weekend warrior. I was jumping all the time, and they, at the time when I started, had great turnout every weekend. There was belly organizers, so got really good at belly flying when I started, and then got sucked into the free flying after I had a couple hundred jumps. I went to collegiates I think I went in end of 2008, or maybe it was 2009, super new jumper, maybe 200 jumps. And I went with some kids from Yukon. We hadn't practiced for anything. We were just completely winging it. We saw the Air Force guys kill it in free flying. Me and a buddy, we went back and we're like, we need to compete in this next year. So we went back home and we just trained in it was 2A MFS or 2A VFS for collegiates. And we just started training, went to collegiate, so I started free flying a lot more. And then did collegiates every year, medaled quite a few times. After I graduated college was what's next, just would go to a bunch of free fly camps, angle camps all over, started traveling because I was actually making a paycheck, so I would travel to events all over the place. I'd come down here for Skydive Carolina. There were some angle camps in Canada. Living in New England, Canada wasn't that far. They used to have this big event called Go Big. It was Skyvan jumps from 18,000 feet in Canada. Would travel and just wanted to get better at flying, angle flying, head down, free flying, whatever. And then I got my tandem rating the year I graduated college because back to my personal finance thing, skydiving is expensive. So I've always worked in the sport since I graduated college to supplement it. So I tried to work just enough to pay for all the fun jumps I wanted to do. And it pretty much worked out. Probably spent a little bit more out of my pocket, but
how do you not get burnt out on skydiving? I mean, you've been in it a while and you've been in a lot of different disciplines.
I did. I definitely got burnt out a little bit. I went hard for quite a few years. It's not super hard, but I do 250 to 300 jumps a year just on weekends and traveling. And then I slowed down a bit when I moved down here. Well, actually, probably a few years after I moved down here, I got into mountain biking and stuff. So now that I live down here, I probably only do 150 jumps a year. I'd rather wake up on a Saturday and go on a bike ride or do something else than just go spend the whole day at the drop zone. So now I just travel more to camps and events that I really want to do. Been to some events in Europe. Really love the flocking, the high-performance canopy flocking. That's been super fun. So change of disciplines, new things. Yeah, just enjoying life overall.
I'm going to put in the show notes video from Operation VK, which was spectacular.
That was an honor to be a part of it. It was so cool.
How did you get on that? What was that process like?
So, good friends with Matt Leonard, who started Momentum. Momentum started the canopy flocking stuff they did an invitational event in 2019 at Paraclete XP. So Max Manow and Matt Leonard started that and just started going to those flocking camps, which was super fun. We started doing some really cool stuff. It's wild what we were doing at the end of those camps. We're not doing on like jump 2 or 3. It used to be like, holy crap, fly by. It was crazy. But yeah, it was like a new thing in skydiving. People hadn't been doing it, so I was really enjoying that. Just kept going to camps, and then I'd done outside video for stuff before. Started flying video for some of those camps, and then good friends with Buzz Ortiz. He works for PD. He's the brains behind Operation VK. He just started talking about it a while ago, and then we had done some Momentum camps working together, doing video and pictures, and he asked me to be on the team. So
I didn't know Buzz was so behind that. That's interesting.
It was his baby.
I'll tell you what blew me away by it, right? Like, when I watch a lot of the flocking that's been going on, it's the guys flying past each other. It's incredible to see the video, or large groups flocking together. But then I started seeing sort of shaping in 3D. Mm-hmm. And when I saw the actual logo of the Valkyrie shaped out in canopies, or sort of, I mean, I know I'm saying shapes, but clearly this is not my jam, but as a spectator of this,
yeah, you can see it from the ground.
Blown away.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. When I first spotted it, and only at Operation VK, I'm like, I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
Did you guys know how special it was being there, or did you realize how great it was after you saw the video?
It's hard to see the shape of it if you're flying in the formation, because you have parachutes all around you. You can know you're in slot or out of slot, but I could see it because I was doing video, so I got to fly through it once and see it from the back and the side. So it's super cool to see it form as well, because it gets out with 2 pilots flying, and then a bunch of parachutes just keep building and building. And as it starts to build, you're like, holy crap. And then it gets tight, and you're like, oh, there it is. That's it.
Who's directing it? If you're in it and you can't see the overall formation that's coming together in shape, how do you know where you are spatially for it to come together?
It's all on the ground, so it's all dirt diving like you would do in a big wave formation. The way you exit, how you approach the formation, who approaches where and when. Then once you get in it, it's like having a cross partner in a big way. You have somebody to your left, to your right, up and down or slightly forward, and you're just trying to hold that. So it's kind of like quadrants. So every full person in a parachute is a block, and you're trying to stay either one system up and behind or 2 systems up and behind. You're just trying to hold that position.
Is there discussions, or is it even needed, that you have a unique vantage point on the formation being eyes on the outside, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any discussion of a guy being on the outside that's using some kind of headset, talking to other people, going, up a bit, down a bit,
We haven't used it in the past at all. We actually did have it for this, but we weren't using it to try to build the formations or change anything. We were just kind of chatting like, all right, going to break off. So video guys knew there was break off and stuff, but we weren't like, oh, guy on the left's out, three things, trying to get him to turn it. That you can't put mics on everybody, because it'd just be too much chaos. It would make it way harder. But there's only the 2 leaders and then 2 of the video people. We had comms, but it wasn't used for any fine-tuning or anything. All that practice came on the ground.
It's almost as if like VFS meets crew.
Yeah.
It is so spectacular, but high speed.
Yeah. What's cool is, you pull out the door, so you get a 6-minute skydive, and you're engaged the whole time. Like, once you're in formation flying around with people, like, you kind of got to be on it the whole time. You'll get down from a flocking jump, and you'll be like, I'm smoked. Your arms are tired, your brain's tired, like everything.
Wow. If that was sort of the unveiling to the world of what's possible, right? I'm sure within these camps, people are freaking out, going, oh my gosh, look what we're actually able to do. And I've been seeing some video out of Paraclete of what's going on with it. Yeah. I almost feel like what we just saw, as incredible as it was, is just scratching the surface of what's possible with formations.
For sure. And it was a big part for PD to get behind it. So PD sees it as a big discipline. So they put a lot of support behind it to make the event happen. And it's kind of a showcase to the world, like big companies putting behind effort to show that it's a big discipline. Then I think more people will get into it.
Which also is almost a no-brainer to me as a marketer because that video is so compelling. Who didn't watch it? I can't imagine the amount of eyeballs that were engaged with that video.
Yeah.
Because it was fascinating. Of course, Buzz is so great, with video editing. I don't know how much a part of that he was. I'm sure he was part of that.
Yeah.
But it was spectacular.
Yeah, the visuals were cool. The skill that was there too was crazy. Just the amount of jumps of the 36 jumpers in the formation was 350,000. Somewhere around there.
I mean, it was a who's who.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. I feel like you're very understated. You go about your skydiving career quietly. I was looking at your Instagram. You're not posting on the regular at all.
No.
But you have big time skill. I mean, to be one of the 36 there, that is an honor.
I appreciate that. Yeah, definitely quieter on the social media and stuff, but have fun doing those types of events, being around all the talent and learning.
Part of your adventures is you've been also traveling, I know, to Slovenia. Mm-hmm. Because you're not a heavy Instagrammer. I don't know where you've been. Where in the world have you been jumping?
All over the States. Been to Panama, the Pepe's Island Boogie back when it started. I've been to Vector Festival in Prague once, and then Slovenia 3 times now, and then Canada back in the day. We'd go jump north of Montreal, but that's pretty much.
Is it a right assumption to say you speak fluent German?
Pretty fluent.
Yeah.
More than conversational, but not 100% fluent. But I can pass for a German.
Any other languages?
Nope.
Gotcha.
Need to learn some, but
German's pretty good.
Yeah.
Who do you look up to? Who do you really admire in the sport?
Man, some of the guys that have been around for a while and they're still doing it. Like being part of Operation VK with Ian Bobo. He's been part of the factory team for a long time. He taught my first canopy class like back in 2009-10. It was just wild that they're still going.
And just to jump in there, Ian Bobo is a really understated guy.
Yeah.
I think you could walk past him at the drop zone, and if you're a relatively new jumper, have no idea all his contributions to the sport, but what he's still got coming down the pipeline.
Yeah.
He's not slowing down, even though he's been around a minute.
Cam King, he used to run Z Hills. He taught me my first jump course, or not my first jump course. When I did my first tandem, he's the one that trained me. He kind of took me under his wing a little bit when I was coming up in the sport, taught me a lot of stuff, gave me my tandem rating, taught me how to swoop safely, good things to watch out for. So he's been a big inspiration through my career. I don't know that I have any other big inspirations. I like one of my best friends, Matt Leonard, with the whole flocking stuff. He's kept me in the sport, I want to say. Like Buzz has been a big inspiration with all the video and picture stuff. Mike Brewer, those guys. See people doing cool stuff, you want to learn from them.
Yeah, we've done a bit of work with Mike Brewer. He's super talented as well.
For sure.
So you've been so involved in so many different disciplines, and you're very calculated in everything you do. You begin with the end result in mind. So what's next for you in the sport? I mean, you've been doing so much. Is there much more that you're curious about?
I went hard into the free flying stuff back in the day, and I've gotten away from it a little bit since I stopped competing. I've been mainly focusing on flocking, staying current on my parachute, so I'd like to get back into some free fall stuff. I'm going to be doing some of that this year. Yeah, just get back into it a little bit, get better again, shake off some rust in free fall. But overall, probably stay similar to what I have the last few years. I don't really have a desire to do 500 jumps a year. I feel pretty good with where I'm at and able to stay on that currency level. With your business ownership as an entrepreneur, do you have the freedom of time to be able to do pretty much whatever you want when you want? How restrictive or non-restrictive is it? I know like both businesses have tasks that they need to get done, but they don't need to be done at this exact date or this exact time. Now that I'm a few years into them, I've been able to delegate some stuff. Like I was in Europe for 3 weeks this year, so my brother was out of town as well, so I had somebody filling in. So I was available by phone if they needed me, but I was still able to be overseas for 3 weeks. I know the work that gets done, some of it I can do remotely, and then the other stuff I just put people in place that can take over while I'm not there. It's overused when people say they're living the dream, right? It's almost sarcastic. Yeah. How's it going? I'm living the dream. After throwing 15 drogues for the day, right? Yeah. Everybody that said that to me at my whole job, I called them a liar. Because of your intentionality, I mean, when you define what is living the dream to me is living life on my own terms. And I feel like you are living the dream because you don't have the W-2 employer telling you where you need to be and when. Yep.
Now, I'm not saying that you get out of bed and go, "Oh, I wonder what I'll do today." You're not retired. Do you sort of look at yourself as going, "Okay, I don't know if the right word is you're not lucky because this didn't happen by luck."
Luck is a combination of actions repeated.
There you go. Do you get up and go, "Man, I'm lucky. I am a fortunate person"?
Yeah. I'm grateful for where I'm at right now. I have a lot of freedom in what I get to do and how I get to spend my time. So yeah, super grateful for that.
Dan, you seem buttoned up. Do you feel stress?
Sometimes I got a lot of things going on. Part of a startup that there's a lot of things going on, but again, that's all by choice. Mm-hmm. So if I get stressed, it's very short lived. I don't stay stressed. I don't lose sleep over anything. Sleep like a rock. So yeah, to get me worked up, angry, or stressed, it takes quite a bit.
I would imagine. I've only ever seen you in just a pretty chill state.
Yeah.
When you think about your skydiving career to date, and I'm not saying it's over, you've done so much. You've met so many people. You've traveled to so many places. I never like to ask the question, what's your favorite jump? Because no jumper can seem to really answer that.
Yeah.
But is there a specific moment that when you reflect on it makes you smile like, yeah, that was an amazing experience?
It makes me go back to collegiates, because collegiates, we were just a bunch of reckless college kids, and we used to have so much fun partying and just jumping. And then like I just became such good friends with some of those guys, and they're all still my good friends. So it's like those friendships were started way back then. We've all done stuff in the sport. Outside of the sport, we still talk all the time. So it's like, it's cool to see those first experiences back in the day still come to what they are today. So like catching up with a friend, and you're like, man, I've had some good times over the years.
I've been to a couple of collegiates, and that sort of youthful exuberance is the best.
Yeah.
You know, Doug Barron is a friend of mine, and I was friends with he and Andrew Happick and Joey Coffino. And
yeah, they were all collegiates when I started back in the day.
With Virginia Tech
Carolina
Space Dockers,
Turbo,
VTSD, yeah. and then Carolina Turbo. Man, it was as if those guys were out to beat the world.
Yep.
It was fun. Yeah. This podcast is sponsored by Beyond Marketing, the digital marketing agency for the skydiving industry. Now, I'm not a fan of lots of ads during a podcast. I mean, who likes ads? So I'll stop talking about how marvelously wonderful Beyond Marketing is. But if you're curious about what the amazing people of Beyond Marketing do to help drop zones and manufacturers thrive, then you should check out their website at dropzone.marketing. That's dropzone.marketing. One thing that we haven't talked about is how into bike riding you are. How much a part of your life is that?
It's pretty big now. I've slowed down the last year, but yeah, when I moved down here, when I worked at Joe Gibbs, we had a big group of people that rode bikes at lunch every day. So I got into that and then started doing some mountain bike racing and really liked it. So I rode quite a bit over the last few years. It's pretty steady the whole time I've lived here. Slowed down a little bit, but yeah, it's good. I like it a lot. It's got a community around it, just like skydiving. There's bike races, bike rides all over. North Carolina is a pretty amazing place for mountain biking. Tons of group rides every weekend. So I use it for fitness, but it's a fun way to do fitness. It keeps me in shape. It's a good way to clear your head. And it's challenging. Like, go out and do some tough long bike rides, and got to push myself a little bit. You get to some physically challenging things, and when you get in some dark places in your head, like, I feel like you come out better on the other side when you can get through it.
I think when I mentioned about being a business athlete and exercising for me, though I could stand to certainly lose a few pounds, I do it for my mental health.
For sure. Same.
It's huge for me. You know, I am grinding as a business owner. I would like to grind less. I'd like to get to Dan Schiermeyer status, but it's critical for me to be able to get some endorphins.
Yeah.
You know, going for sure. What does a typical day look like for you? I mean, because you're so intentional, I imagine that it's quite structured. Is it?
Yeah. So when I worked at JGR, I used to have to get to work at 6. So I'm pretty much an early riser for life now. So I still get up between 5 and 6. Right now, I'm on a pretty consistent gym program, so I go to the gym at 6, 3 days a week. And then if I don't go to the gym, sometimes I ride my bike in the morning on like a trainer if it's cold weather like it kind of is now. Or I sit and read. I read a lot more now, last few years. I think I read like 14 books last year and like 18 books the year before. So that's been part of being more intentional. So I really enjoy reading, and like I can focus better in the morning. So that's when I do it. And then It's usually spend an hour working on my own stuff. So whatever I got to do, business stuff at home. And then I've been working for a startup. So I go down, work in the office, work on that. And then run errands throughout the day. Whatever I choose to do, really.
That's great. Have you read Atomic Habits?
I've listened to it. I need to read it.
Yeah.
It's on my list to actually read.
I think for those listening, and a lot of us have really big goals to try and go ahead and do something, big. Sometimes there's that really big push or that really big effort, typically around this time of year in January.
Yeah.
And then it fizzles. What I'm hearing you say, it's your daily habits that are giving you these outcomes. There's a discipline here daily.
Yeah.
Not like this, I want to bulk up 50 pounds, so I'm going to go hard and crazy, and then you lose steam. It's really small things, consistent.
Yeah, having that 5-10 year vision where you want to be. So I know those things I want to do. There's action steps you got to do. It doesn't have to be every day, but it's got to be pretty consistent to actually get there.
I want to ask you 3 more questions. If there's a young skydiver that's listening that goes, wow, this guy, Dan, is getting everything out of skydiving. I mean, you've been a part of so many disciplines. What advice would you give to younger jumpers that are listening?
Don't be afraid to pay for coaching. Go to camps where you can learn from the top people in the sport. Paying to learn is not a bad thing. Travel, go see other drop zones, because not every drop zone runs the same. And if you only jump at one place and you learn bad habits or safety things, you might not pick up on it when you go to other places. So I think traveling's huge. Just meeting other jumpers, and don't be scared to try different disciplines. When
you're a younger jumper, right, and you go to a drop zone, either you're home DZ or you have enough jumps to go to another one. That's intimidating.
For sure.
It can be super scary. To me, I look at it sort of going to a new school and not knowing anybody.
Yeah.
Right? Any advice there on how to sort of get past that discomfort?
I mean, boogies are a great way. A lot of drop zones will put on an event, even if it's not a big one. Grab a friend from your drop zone and go somewhere else for the weekend. Try it out, meet some new people. Then the next time you go there, you probably met somebody that worked at the drop zone. It's not a completely strange face. Strike up a conversation, go from there. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I'm an introvert for sure, so I've moved around, had to meet new people. It's not comfortable, but getting out of your comfort zone is how you learn and grow.
One thing that I think many people listening to your journey in terms of financial independence is you sound like you got this so figured out, because when I listen to you, I go, man, Dan is so smart. Can I have what Dan has? Because I'm not as smart as you, let's say. What is the first thing? I mean, there's so many things in terms of progression, but if somebody is listening and going, man, I would love to be an entrepreneur, but you have to take that first step. What is that first step? Is it listening to a podcast? Is it just doing the thing and getting the LLC? What?
It all depends on what you're trying to do. I would think it'd be consume information, put some deep thought into what you want to do, and actually try to make a plan, and then try to follow through with it and see if it's what you want to do. It's hard to say. It depends on who the person is and which direction they want to go, whether it's start consuming information, talking like a real estate example. You can start consuming real estate information, read books. The next step, go to a real estate meetup, talk to somebody, see what other people are doing. That's a good step in the real estate world.
What's intimidating to me, Dan, is there is so much information about real estate. There's so much information about investing, right? It's like I am almost overwhelmed because I don't want to start in the wrong place and potentially get wrong information.
Yep.
So where's the right place?
Man, that's a tough one because there's so many different people out there. But Bigger Pockets for Real Estate, that's a great place to start. They're a big community. They have an online forum. They interview a ton of people. They have a vetting process to even be on their podcast. So most of the people you listen to on there are going to be somewhat legit. They have good ideas. From that, I feel like there's good ways to go through. Go to Bigger Pockets and you can channel out and find good resources.
Final question. For me, let's say my entry into skydiving, I was a golf professional and a Chevy Astro van showed up at the golf course parking lot that said Skydive Carolina Parachute Center.
Is that Danny?
It was Danny Smith. Come to the practice range to work on his game. And I did one thing. I left my business card on the windshield of that van. Had I not done that,
life wouldn't look what it is right now.
I'm not even talking to you right now.
It's wild.
Because of what happened in that one thing. I put a business card and said, I'm interested in a tandem. I don't think I'm speaking with you. I never would have run Skydive Carolina or be in this community. And of course, that one jump changed my life. But if that one little action doesn't happen, my life is completely different. I view that as a crossroads moment. Do you have a crossroads moment where you go, man, if I didn't do that one thing, I'm likely on a different track?
It's skydiving related, but a big pivotal point was when I did that first adventure buggy in 2018. So a group of friends, we all went over to Slovenia for adventure boogie, and I just had such a good time. I went and saw my family before I went. I have family in Germany, and then went down to the boogie. Had such a good time, and it was with a lot of these friends that I used to go to collegiates with, and a lot of us as a group hadn't been together in 5-6 years. I just love Europe, so I came back from that trip, and I was like, I got to change something. I'm like, I was kind of getting over working for the race team, and I have a German passport, so I was actually, right before COVID, I was like, I'm quitting my job, I'm going to move to Europe, better work-life balance, they just have better vacation, and I was like, I'm going to go try that. That's going to be my new thing. And then came back from Adventure Boogie, got this cool job opportunity, stuck around for it because it could have translated into a really good resume builder. We didn't end up getting that offer. It was like something our company was bidding on. We didn't get it. And then COVID hits. World shuts down. Europe was even worse. And bought a car wash. Changed my whole trajectory. And then the work-life balance thing changed to, hey, if I can control my time, I can live my life however I want to. That's how I've gotten to where I am now, but I bring it all back to taking that trip to going to Europe that year, even though I don't know that I had the vacation time or wanted to spend all the money I did, but definitely pivotal.
I think what fascinates me about that is there are many people that would think that they have made it. Like the ultimate goal in employment would be working for an organization like Joe Gibbs Racing. And you are seeing past the gloss and go, no, this is not what I want for myself. Yeah. I will create a different path.
It's a great company. They take care of their employees very well, but don't want to work my life away.
Yeah, I mean, that's what makes you interesting to me, Dan, is so many people are working for security. And when you have it, you don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
It takes a level of risk to walk away from that security. And I really admire that about you for sure.
Yeah, it's not easy to take some of those risks. You gotta do it. But again, you gotta always think of the worst case scenario. It's not hard to get a job.
It's not hard to get a job. Dan Schiermeyer, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
For meeting with me. And this is a different format, a different conversation than somewhat, but I think fascinating, your journey. And I hope anyone that's listening that's an entrepreneur or a skydiver and wants to follow in your track, is there a way that they could maybe get in touch with you to chat with you?
Yeah, reach out to me on Instagram, Free Fly Kid. It's easy I'm always on there, so to respond. Facebook as well. Shoot me a message, or I can leave an email or something.
Right on. Dan, thanks again.
No problem. Thanks.
Look forward to following you. Cheers. Hey everyone. Thanks so much for listening to the 20-Minute Call podcast. Please do follow us on your podcast app so you always have the latest episode, which is released every Monday. If you want to contact the team, our email address is podcast@beyondmarketing.xyz. This episode was edited and engineered by Garnet Znydrick of the YouTube channel Blue Skies Fun Days. Thanks for listening, and join us next week for our next episode.